So I heard about this man who called the office at the synagogue. So the receptionist, he answered the phone. Shalom. Thank you for calling. What can I do for you? This man, he was clearly in a bad mood. He said, can I speak to the head hog at the trough? He said, excuse me? Yeah, can I speak to the head hog at the trough? He said, excuse me, sir, that's not nice. That's rude. If you mean the rabbi, you will have to call it rabbi. And the guy said, whatever. I was just calling to make a donation of $10,000 for the building fund. She said, hold on, pork is just walking. I want to talk to you today about, I'm not in the mood. Have you ever heard that phrase? I'm not in the mood. Have you ever said that? I'm not in the mood. Something that we have it all the time. We know that we have to do something, but nevertheless we don't do it because we are not in the mood. And you see, that kind of behavior sometimes get worse when things are difficult around us. Sometimes when things are all going our way and life is easy to do what we know we have to do. We don't have to deal with any kind of negative thoughts, negative feelings. We just do it. But when things start getting difficult around, it starts affecting our thoughts, start affecting our feelings, and eventually thought and feelings are so powerful that they will start affecting your behavior. And we can see this, and I don't have to tell you. The pandemic is a perfect example. With so many things that we would like to do and we cannot do it because, we have COVID and we have restrictions, so we can't go anywhere. Well, it's not that we can't, it's not that you can go to many places with this weather anyway. But nevertheless, it affects our mood. And then sometimes we stop doing things that we know we should be doing, or we start doing things differently the way that we know we should be doing it that way. This parsha brings something very interesting, because this parsha somehow, and some of the laws presented, are dealing with feelings, conditioning our behavior. You see, one of the laws, one of the Mishpatim presented in this parsha says that if you see the donkey of someone you hate, okay? And if you see that the donkey is struggling under the load, and you feel like doing nothing, the Torah said, nevertheless, you have to go and help them. Isn't that amazing? Because the parsha here brings two different things. Brings feeling and brings action. Start saying, if you see the donkey of someone you hate, that's a feeling. And then it's actually said, and you feel like doing nothing. You feel like restraining from helping them. You feel it. The Torah said, nevertheless, even if you are not in the mood, you have to go and help. Because at the end of the day, what fault has this poor donkey that you hate the owner? It's not its fault. So nevertheless, if you see the donkey is struggling, you have to go and help, even if you are not in the mood. There are many examples of this kind of thing on how negative feelings can affect our lives all over Scripture. The most famous one to me is the one that we read during Purim, the story of Haman. Remember? Please don't start booing me. That's what you're supposed to do when you hear that name. Nevertheless, what happened is Haman was a person who, on paper, if you read the story, if you read the Megillah, he had it all. He was second in command of Persia. Power. He had money. Had a large family. Had a wife. Everybody was bowing down to him. But then there was this man, one man, Mordecai, who wouldn't bow down to him. And that action will totally change Haman's mood And then he will lose it. And he will allow, for one thing that happened to him, he will allow all those strong feelings to take control over his life. And then he will start behaving erratically. So this is something that we have to be very, very careful. Because if we don't control our feelings and our thoughts, if we don't do something to improve that situation, eventually thoughts and feelings can take control of our lives. And eventually that affects our behavior. You know, sometimes it's okay because the way we feel, the way we thought, we keep it to ourselves. But the problem is when because of that, we start doing things that may affect other people. And that's why the Torah will say that it is important to keep those feelings and thought under control and to sometimes force ourselves to behave in a certain way in the hope that that behavior will eventually change the way we feel and the way we think. Now, there is another law in this Torah that is very interesting. Not because that specific law is interesting, but because how some rabbis are taking the principle from this law and they are using that principle for something that goes way beyond of what seems to be written in that verse. Let me explain. This parsha also says that if you have a cistern, for water, you have a cistern that has a hole in the floor, what you have to do, like it or not, it says you have to cover it. Why? It says because if, God forbid, an animal or a person will fall into that hole, it's your fault. You are liable and you are responsible for what happens to them. Seems logical, right? You have to be careful. If you have a hole in your property, you have to cover it so nobody else will fall there and it will get harmed. But I read this beautiful interpretation presented to us by Rabbi Israel Salanter. Who was Israel Salanter? He was a Rebbe from the 1800s in Lithuania. And he was saying that this cistern is called, in the Torah, especially as a bore, this hole, it says is Reshut Arabim, is private domain, because it has something that has the potential to harm everybody around. And there are some other things that they are private. But this one is Reshut Arabim. But then, all of a sudden, he will say that the same happened with our face. He was saying that our faces at Reshut Harabim. Our faces are public domain. What other people see from us has the potential to affect other people. So he said, if you walk around, was saying this Rabbi Salanter, when he was reading this verse, if you walk around with a sour face, that is bor birshut arabim. It's like that cistern that is mentioned in the Torah, that has the potential somebody to fall into there and to get harmed. So Rabbi Salanter was teaching his students, we have to be very careful the way we present to other people. Because if you walk around angry, the sour face, bitter, and because of that, you're now affecting other people, that is on you. It's your fault, it's your responsibility, you are liable. So this is amazing, and how sometimes we don't think about that, how our behavior has the power to affect other people. But in the same way that a sour face can affect other people negatively, a happy face, a smile, a positive attitude, showing optimism to other people has also the same effect. Has the potential and the power to uplift other people around you. So you can be the source of bringing joy and bringing something positive to other people that maybe they don't have a source of joy and optimism in their own lives. So I was thinking that sometimes we have no power to control what other people do. Yes, some people will walk around you with a sour face. Nothing you can do about that, but what it is up to you is to work on yourself. You can work on those feelings. You can work on those thoughts. And through a change of behavior, smiling more, listening to something positive, reading positive things, we have the power not only to change our own feelings and our own thoughts, but also we have the power to affect for the good everybody that we happen to encounter in our lives. Shabbat Shalom.